Hi, welcome back to the shed, and how about a little boat build update. So I've been very busy with the small business that I started up to bring a little bit of extra money in for my family. So sorry that I've been missing in action. So I've hit a bit of a quiet patch now. I can get back to the boat build. We've made some progress. So the frames are in. I'm ready to put some stringers in. But why don't we just kick off the video, and we'll go a little bit forward and backward in time, and we'll just have a look at what I've done to get us up to this stage. So doing this chine string is going quite well. So if you've missed it, we are laminating this stringer up out of a few separate pieces, and that means like a big 3-inch bit like that. I don't have to bend it because you can see that it's like 3 inches wide. It'd be quite hard to bend, and I don't want to get into steam bending or anything like that. So I've gone down the route of laminating. So it's been fairly straightforward. I haven't had any bits that are long enough to do the whole boat in one, but the nice thing about a lamination is where they join, I can make sure that they overlap, so they reinforce each other. The other nice thing about lamination is if there's a fault in any timber, it won't go all the way through. Later on when we're coming to shape this, that's a potential weak part. If that was just one solid bit of wood and I hit a fault in it, it might undo the work that I've done. On all of these, with the temporary screws that I've used as makeshift clamps, if you like, I have gone either with Torx or square drive rather than Phillips head, because I do want to get them out again. And as long as they're not misshapen, I can use them again. So these ones are just galvanized. These are never going to see the ocean. They're just temporary, so that's not a bad thing. And out they come pretty easily. In addition to screws every 150, this one isn't, is it? That one's every 250. I must have missed this, but there's a screw in the top here, and what I wanted was flexibility so that bends down and picks up this bottom panel. A chine stringer needs to bend with the boat this way, but also it needs to bend that way as well. It's a compound bend. So there we go. Lots of epoxy oozing out the bottom of there, but that's okay. Once all this is all done, we'll shape it up, and then we'll clean up any grooves left by screws if they're exposed. We'll thicken epoxy those, and everything will be nicely sealed. Two jobs required working at lengths and angles. The first was a long wedge needed to rectify a problem we identified with the plans in an earlier episode. This was very straightforward. The second job, a reinforcement for the mast step, required a form of template to be made to capture the exact length of the component and the angles at each end. So I've started just making sure that all of my fillets and everything look good back through here. I'll need to run some other ones through this strengthening, this bracing bit that we put in yesterday. That all looks really good. The squeeze out is minimal, but I can still see it. We'll just put a nice big fillet in there in any case. Some of these fillets that I've done before are aging nicely, nice and smooth, but there's a few more things to be done. All I want to do is just get some stuff done before all the stringers are in place and it becomes more difficult to get in there. These these stringers that are going to be going through here are going to be difficult. I can already sense it, so we'll see how we go. So the instructions call for dry fitting the stringer first. So up here on the bow, what I've done is I've secured the stringer a little bit further back and just bent it into place. And I came along and I cut the notch once I'd marked it out. In the plans, it gives you the option you can measure and cut it. You know, when you're first laying out this bow piece, if you like. Because there was the option to wait and just see how the lay of the land was, I decided to go that way instead. These stringers, what they're going to be, they'll add some strength to the design, but they are really to get the nice fair shape of our hull. So I want to make sure that where it comes down to this next one, I might need to just file out a little bit of that so it fits in. Again, a nice fair curve is much more important than like slavishly following to each particular notch. The other thing that I have to be aware of is at the moment these are quite floppy. So I could do it this one. You know, they're a bit floppy. The ones that are just like upright frames, they're floppier again. So I don't know if this can be done just with one person. I might get my neighbour Don, and we might have to do it a stringer at each one. All right, before we go any further, let's just talk about a screw up that I made. Everyone's like, how do you pick which one to talk about? So it's important to talk about screw ups. Some people might be watching this in assistants building their own Pathfinder, and I think people screwing up is probably more instructive than successes. So with this one, frame number 6, so we've got frame number 6, there's one more, and then the transom, okay? So second one forward on the transom is the one I'm talking about. It has a temporary brace here, and when you glue it in place on the chine stringer when it's going in, you just sort of drop it in and you can hit it with some glue. To get the angle right, I actually put the seat front in place according to the instructions. You can see where I've taken the screw holes out here. And I use that to, you know, because the angles are drawn on those seat fronts. All well and good. But the thing is I braced this so it followed the curve of the chine stringer. So what's happened is, and I can't believe I didn't think of it when I was doing it, is that when I glued everything in place and I took this off, what I've found is that if we look at a straight edge line going through there, they're not straight. They're slightly swept back like an F14, a jet. Maybe if I put it on the front, it's easier to see. So yeah, there's our straight line, and you can see that it's actually sloping back at a little bit of an angle. A little bit silly of me there. You're not going to notice. You're going to have a seat front on the front. You're going to have a seat on the top, and it's not such an angle that it's going to bring the waist of the boat in any, but it was still something that I hadn't planned to do, and it resulted in that. So there's a bit of a screw up there. Don't do screw ups, or if you're going to do them, just make them minor like that one. Okay, let's keep talking screw ups. Down here on the transom, if we look, before I installed it, I laid it on its back and gave it another quick coat of unthickened epoxy. And I went to throw in some fillets. I thought it might be a bit easier than when it was in place. I don't know if that's true or not, but in any case, I didn't thicken the epoxy enough. So even though I've done a million fillets, even this one, I think what happened is I got it looking like peanut butter initially, but I hadn't stirred it enough. And I continued stirring. I was putting them in, and I was a little bit concerned. So over time, it has in fact sagged. Between the fillet on the port side and over on the other one, on the starboard side, you can see that one's a bit better. I actually popped a bit more powder in, and those fillets have held quite well. So I've got a bit of work to do. It's never fun fixing up screwed up fillets, so it really does pay not to rush, because I save time then and cost myself a bit of work in the future. I'll have to have a look at the plans. I'm not sure, that might actually be hidden. Okay, the next step, I'm just about to put the stringers in. I just have to go through all of these frames, because when I glued them together, some of them had a little bit of squeeze out of hardened epoxy, so I better just get rid of that. Otherwise the dimension of the slot where the string is going to go through isn't correct. Probably a good time just to go over this again. I've done it in past episodes, but a multi-tool with a grout removing bit on it, so just a tongue of steel with some industrial diamonds on there. I've had this through, well, this lasted the entire refit of Marul and all the work that it's put into. So when you're dealing with epoxy, which is a fairly soft sort of material for a grout blade, they last a long time. It wasn't that expensive and I'm getting good value out of it. So yeah, I'll just go through all of these, check them all out. Oh, this one needs a bit of attention, and just make sure that all of the epoxy's gone and everything's ready to go. Another one of those not so exciting jobs, but I thought I'd just stop and just remind people that this is a great epoxy tool. Okay, so here's a bit of a wrinkle. This is probably the toughest bit of this boat build at the moment. I think we can take care of it, but it's a bit of a complication. So where all these notches are cut for the stringers, these longitudinal bits that will define the shape of the boat, where they join each one of the frames, now that it's shaped in a boat, a leaf-like pattern, each one of these notches is at 90 degrees to the actual frame. So what I'm going to need to do now is dry fit this stringer in place, come along and scribe a line across there, cut that out so that it fits nice and neatly. It's going to be a little bit fiddly, it's going to take some time. So while I was hoping to get all of these stringers done before the end of the week, I don't know. Because I'm going to have to do that for every single notch, you know, like make sure that line of attack. A criticism of that might be that you can just like, oh, we'll just make up the gap with epoxy. It's not necessarily that. This stringer is going to be twice this thickness. So in this instance, I have to cut this bit off. So this is pretty much the same thickness as that. That means everything will be, you know, like stuck out that much further than these frames. And when it comes time to shape this bit of wood to take the planking for the hull, you know, I'll shave all of it away and just be left down to the one. So I really do need to actually bring this in and customize these individual slots all the way on all of these frames, so the angle of attack is a lot better. Obviously, it's a lot more here up at the front. In the waist of the boat or in the middle of the boat, it should be, you know, almost square. None of it's absolutely square. And then again, as we get further down towards the back, I really need to shape those notches again. Ooh, that's pretty good. Okay, so I have found that these Japanese pull saws are quite nice for this sort of work. If it starts to bind up or anything, it's very easy just to take the weight off it and just cut on the pull stroke with no downward pressure. What's that I hear you say? What? Use the saw how it's designed to be used? Yeah, I know. But, you know, I'm not an expert woodworker, so every now and then I do it right. It feels good. So that angle of attack is really great. It looks spot on. And so that means that when I put the next bit of wood, it should go pretty well here. It'll stick out a bit, and that's fine. We can just shape it for the next plank. Obviously, what it will also mean though is that the actual front of the frame might just need a little bit of work with a plane and a belt sander, but I'm okay with that. That's fine. There's a couple of these that I will have to just deepen by about 3 or 4 millimeters. That's okay. I can very easily see where the problem lies here, and just nip it out there. And some of the other ones I might just square off the inside of in the corners. Okay, so now we're up at the blunt end of the boat, up at the stern, and you can see that this should bend in fairly nicely here. There will be another bit of wood there. I just need to put a temporary brace there to give that the nice curve out. This frame doesn't come up all the way, it stops down there. So that should come in all right, but this is not, that notch is not it doesn't come down enough. It has to come down another probably about 6 millimeters, a 1/4 inch to accommodate that. So that's going to be a blind cut, which is always a little bit fiddly, but with a multi-tool with one of the little flat blades, that should be fairly straightforward as well. So that bit of wood, that joins those frames absolutely beautifully. You can see though that when it comes to the bow, it looks quite high. So it does need to, a little bit of a bend needs to be put onto that. At first when I saw that this was high, I thought maybe this was out. So I got a little stick and just put it across those other frames and just saw how the deck was going to go, see if it was flat. And this looks pretty good. This is downward slope, so there's a bit of wood going in here that's quite stout. That's going to be joining on the top of there. But that's correct. I thought maybe I was a little bit short, which is... Okay, I couldn't cut these stringers from one piece to get the length of the boat, so I've temporarily just joined it with this backing plate. This will be removed. When once this is in place and I put the next lamel on top, I'll just make sure that the join isn't, well, it's basically here where you see that pencil line, but on this side, I'll just make sure that the join of the next two is offset by, you know, probably a frame either way. Once those two bits are epoxy together, it'll be plenty strong, so that's fine. So when we're looking at all of this, you can see that there's a little bit to it. You wouldn't want to be doing this with epoxy sitting there catalysing or going off in a tub. So when the instructions say to dry fit everything first and then go ahead and epoxy, at this stage they definitely mean it. So there's definitely some fitting to be done at this stage. Like I said before, this is probably the trickiest part of the build. There's probably, if there's people watching and they might have gone through the build before, they might be like, oh yeah, wait till you try and shave down the chine string or something. So, no doubt there'll be something even trickier, but at this point in time I feel that this is a fairly challenging part of this boat build, getting everything just right. Okay, it's really starting to look great now that I've got this first stringer sort of in place. I can see the shape of my boat. It's given my imagination something to work with, and it's another really nice milestone. So we put the very first lamel in of the first stringer here. This side is fully glued and screwed all the way. This one, it's just to the first lot of clamps. I've screwed here, 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 there. The next one, a little bit further back, Don and I had a bit of a mishap. He was sort of leaning on one of the frames. We were seeing like how, just trying to get everything fair. We were just seeing if, you know, how things moved. He's a big guy, nice and strong, bit of leverage on the frame. He's actually cracked some of the epoxy down in the floor panel frame join. So I'm going to cut that out and re-epoxy that. So this side is glued and screwed, and the other side The bits that I haven't got glue on yet, I have left them clamped. So what we did is when we were putting these in, rather than going at the same time, we clamped both of them, made sure that the frames were all good, and then we left the clamps on one side and screwed and glued the other side. With one lamel, by cutting this into two, and we're going to laminate it up in the future, it's made things really stress-free. I'm glad we did it. With Don and I doing this, screwing it, it really pulled it into shape to the frame, so we've got the nice twist that the designer wants. And the bending in two planes couldn't have been easier. So my concerns about cutting it this way or down that way, they were all for nothing. But this lamel's worked really well. So what I'm going to do is I'll put the first one of each one of these in, and then I'll go through and put the second ones down. Some of those have got a few faults in the wood, so I want to get the most fault-free ones as the base lamel, and then when I'm laminating up the second layer to make up the thickness of these stringers, if there's a little knot hole or something like that, I won't be too phased about it. But the boat's taking shape, so I hope you've enjoyed this little update. Hopefully I can get back into the boat a bit sooner than I have in the past. Next week I am booked out again. I'm busy. Winter's on the way here with the rain, so I'd rather stay in the shed, but anyway. So I do have some more work. I'll try and get back to the boat and give you an update a little bit quicker, but otherwise, thank you very much for sharing some of your precious time with me in the shed, and I hope you enjoyed this week's update.